Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us today. We have Mr. Camren Harris. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. Man, back in college, I jokingly always called you Mr. Senator. Oh, you were the first person that came to mind about doing this episode, and we're going to talk about the importance of voting in this 2020 election. And before we get into that, Cam, if you just want to give an introduction of who you are, what you do, and what got you into the political fields.
Yeah, man, certainly. So again, my name is Camren Harris. I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Went to school with Martin, and as he said, he kind of always spoke life into me, if you will, being in this political field. But I kind of got my start in politics our senior year at Capitol. I worked at the Ohio House of Representatives as a caucus page, and that is what kind of sparked my curiosity. So I'm gonna pause there and let you know what I do now. I do a lot of political consulting and advocacy work. I'm down in DC now in DC. Of course, here at the mecca of everything political in America. So I've been down here for a little bit, loving it. And just to go back to where I was at, I started at the Ohio State House. And that's what really kind of gave me the itch. I was, setting up for session. I would hear these people come in and talk about important pieces of legislation and why this bill should pass and why this bill isn't any good, and seeing how that kind of trickled down into our everyday lives. And that's what really sparked my interest. It was simply a job that I needed to kind of keep some money in my pocket while I was finishing school. Yeah. And I kind of fell in love with it. From there, I went on to intern through the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. That exposed me to Capitol Hill. And once I got down on Capitol Hill for that summer, I was like, yep, this is what I want to do. This is the field I want to be in. From there, went back to the Ohio State House as a legislative fellow, and as an LA, was there for a little while. Went on to do some advocacy work in the church space. Kind of being the what's a good term for it? Kind of like the spearhead for many things political in regards to the Black church in Columbus for the Baptist Ministerial Alliance. So that got me to the religious side of it. So it was good to get that experience too. And then from there, I kind of got into consulting and haven't really looked back.
That's great. So currently you're located in DC, or are you still in Columbus?
Yeah. I'm located in DC now. Wow. So very, very, strange time to be down here. Mm-hmm. I go up to the Hill a lot, Capitol Hill, and I'm so used to it being, this lively place. But, with, COVID and everything, it's like a ghost town sometimes. So it's just kind of weird.
Right. So you being in DC, I guess, what's a typical day like? Who do you report to? Like, how many meetings are you going to a day?
Oh, man. So with the consulting agency and firm, of course, I have some higher ups. But given the priority of the day, it changes. No one day sort of looks the same. Mm-hmm. You kind of go with what Congress is taking up at the moment, right? That, for example, something that's really popular on a lot of people's radars was the College Affordability Act. That is essentially the HEA, which is this big, comprehensive, higher ed reauthorization bill and reform. Right. As great as it is with all these additions and some things that people want to take out, so forth and so on. It's this great comprehensive bill, but it's kind of put on pause right now because of everything that's COVID related. So that then changes and switches, your strategy on what bills you're going to advocate for, what, representatives or senators you need to talk to, or who on the particular staff you need to talk to, who you need to email. So it varies. So there could be days where I'm in meetings from, 9:30 to about 4:30. Then, there's sometimes a networking piece that you kind of go to, receptions and meetings, or, happy hours. That type of piece goes on where business still happens there. That was, pre-COVID. Now it's emails, Microsoft Teams, Zoom meetings, and you can be there all day, be on those platforms all day, or it's you sitting down with your team and trying to strategize the best way to, get a piece of legislation in front of a legislator and see how that can move.
Now, what you just saying, what you guys switched to like the Microsoft Teams and all that stuff, and then for normal people like myself who aren't in Capitol Hill, all we see is older people on TV, politically wise, and obviously you're younger. We graduated together, so was that? I don't know if like people of that age, older people are working with you. Was it hard for them to get accustomed to the Zoom and using computers and things like that?
Yeah, man, there is definitely a somewhat of a learning curve, if you will, for people who aren't as familiar with these platforms. I think one of the most common ones, and you probably have experienced this too, is you be in the meeting with someone, you're talking, and then it's time for the person to respond, and you can see their mouth moving and they're saying something. You're like, oh, you're on mute. That happens all the time, and I think that was one of the still is, I guess, one of the hardest challenges that some of the older folks kind of hard to adapt to. Just remembering to press the button and making sure that you're on and off mute.
Right. I mean, here for me because I work at Children's Services here down in Columbus, Ohio, like they'll be talking, and when other people are talking, they don't mute themselves. You hear all of their background. Yeah. The person who's supposed to be given their report and stuff. And I'm just sitting back there just like, oh, you just got to mute. One of you just got to mute, and then they both mute. And then, yeah, it's weird when you have that generational gap because we came up with computers and like even small stuff like Game Boys to Xbox, like iPods to iPads, and they didn't come up with that stuff. So them trying to catch up now real time, it's just tough. I feel for them. It's like, couldn't be me. But then some of these kids that I work with or I go see like these families and stuff, you got 5 and below knowing how to fully use an iPhone.
Yeah, man. It blows my mind.
Right, bro. So the election, this is happening Tuesday as of recording today, Sunday. And we plan to get this out to everyone on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So why, me seeing the commercials and things like that, why are they calling this the election of a lifetime, the election of a generation? Why is this one so big?
Sure, man. So, oh man, where to begin with that? So, as we know, all elections have consequences. Mm-hmm. Point blank, period. There's no way around it. Who we elect into public office, whether it's the president, whether it's someone who's sitting on your local school board, these elections have consequences. And I think the reason why this particular election is being branded as such consequential is because one of the state of our country right now, we're dealing with a health crisis, a pandemic. There's been a much more attentive eye to the social unrest and injustices that are in this country. And what we have seen from both sides of the spectrum, if you will, is people really highlighting how if one side is the winner of this election, the country will continue to move forward into a direction no one wants it to go. And that's where I believe we are seeing a lot of this, I don't want to say people being frightened, but a lot of this concern about this specific election is because we're so divided. It feels like, right? It feels like it seems like, and regardless of which side that you're on, you hear, the extremist views from both sides. It scares people to the point where they are aligned with one side or trying to figure out which side they should align with because they're afraid of seeing our country, continue to, rip itself at the seams. So because of everything that we're experiencing right now, the pandemic, the social unrest, as we continue to see, college tuition rise and the debate about healthcare and, the right to marriage, so many things are piling up on top of one another that it's to the point where people are like, look, wherever this election swings, there's going to be some type of consequence. So you got to make sure that you do your part to avoid, the despair of the country falling out of whack. So I think it's because of all that has happened, all that's going on, and clearly seeing either from one side a lack of leadership or from the other, clear leadership that deserves recognition. I think that's why a lot of people are saying that this election is so important.
Yeah, because even with this election, I don't remember. I mean, we're younger, so I think the first time we were able to vote was Obama and Romney.
Yeah, this 2012.
Yeah, so that was the first time like our group was able to vote, and maybe because we were in college, but I don't remember all these old early polls and
right.
like and absentee. I knew absentee ballots were a thing, but not like to this extent. And then I saw something from 10 TV News down here saying on Wednesday that already half the people who voted in Trump campaign have already voted as of Wednesday.
Yeah.
And now today is Sunday. Oh. So I was just amazed to see how much bigger and how much like open it is with polls. I know like sports teams are opening their arenas for polling stations. Yeah. Question was, why was that never happening in the first place? Like, you guys had those big stadiums. Why were there never polling stations in the first place? Why'd you?
Yeah. That's a great question. That's a great question.
And then just to talk a little bit about voter oppression.
Mm-hmm.
I know things are being spread in the media saying if you do the ballots, it might get lost. The mail person might throw it away, whatever. Mm-hmm. But then there's some groups of voters who feel oppressed that they can't vote because of whatever X amount of reason, if it's a criminal record or things of that nature. Could you care and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. So first and foremost, anyone who was planning to, mail in their ballot, I would encourage them to fill out their ballot and then to go drop it off at their county board of elections. Simply because if you put your ballot in the mail today, chances are it might not get to the board of elections. And depending on the state that you live in, some states are saying even if you postmark it, if they don't receive it by that date of the election, then they just won't count it. So I strongly encourage that if you're not going to go vote in person or do early voting, if you're still continuing, or if your state is still continuing to early vote, mail in or fill out your ballot and then go drop it off. Make a plan to go drop it off. Do something, because certain states have already come out with a ruling saying that if you try to mail it in and it's not received by that date, and they can't guarantee that once you put it in, it's going to be received at that date. So make a plan to drop it off if you're not going in. And then as far as like the voter oppression that we've seen and witnessed, and some things that I've heard about, I don't know how true it is, but it's very real. If we're going to be frank and honest about it, it's very real. Oppression efforts have been evident, and when we think about voter suppression and oppression, we kind of think back to what we learned about the civil rights era and what we've read about, and how people were being sprayed with holes and voter intimidation and all that stuff. To an extent, some of that is still going on today, voter intimidation. We've seen people say, hey, go to the polls and make sure that nothing suspicious is going on, right? There's been reports of, people trying to run other people off the road. And back in, I want to say 2014, 15, I don't remember the exact year, but there was the Supreme Court came down with a ruling, the Shelby County versus Holder ruling. And in that ruling, decided to pull out a key provision of the Voting Rights Act. And what that provision is that the states did not have to have federal clearance before making changes to their state election system. So with that ruling or that provision now out of the law, states began to enact different policies, different procedures that made it harder for people to vote. And that's happened within, the last 5 or so years. So It's a very real thing. It's not made up. It's not exaggerated. But do everything that you can to protect your vote, to ensure that your vote is cast, and to also ensure that other people, right? Think of, your aunt, your uncle, your grandmother, someone who may not be as aware of what's going on and what's happening or how important it is. Help them out as well to make sure that their vote, their voice, is counted.
Right. That's something we all gotta do. And then on the other side of the voting, there's still a lot of people who choose not to vote.
Yeah.
And that, for me personally, that baffles my mind. But why do people choose not to vote?
Oh man. So that's a great question. Something that a lot of political theorists and scientists and all these other people who study politics and voting, try to answer. And I think what it comes down to is a lot of people have such a jaded view of the government, right? The government doesn't work for us. It doesn't help us out. It doesn't care about us, or it's made to, keep us down. You have that side of things. And there's other people who just feel as if, I don't like either candidate, right? I don't know why I should vote for a person that, doesn't best represent me or who I feel should be president, right? I feel like so-and-so who's the governor of whatever should be the president. And because the system, quote unquote, is locking or gridlocking them out, I'm just not going to vote. In my opinion, first and foremost, by you withholding your vote and understanding that your vote that's not casted is not going to necessarily affect your livelihood and those who you care about is a act of privilege, right? For you to say, I'm going to sit here and restrain my vote for my personal reasons, not thinking about the consequences of if someone else gets in office who has ill intentions that are against other people, then you're acting in your own self-privilege. That was just a personal anecdote. I strongly believe that you withholding your vote is always detrimental for someone else who is less fortunate than you. But going back to your question, some people have this wrong view of the presidential election, right? I think a lot of people see the presidential election as an end all be all. As soon as we elect the president, the president is going to get in and do what I want the president to do. And when the president doesn't do that in one election, they say, oh, the president didn't do this. Why am I going to vote again if they didn't stand up and do what I thought they were going to do? And then to the other point of that is a lot of people think that the presidency, because they think it's the end all be all, they like to subscribe or view this as a marriage when it's not a marriage, right? I saw something on either Facebook or Twitter. They said the election is more so of a bus stop, right? It may not be your final destination. This may not be the candidate that you want today, right? To make America get to the promises that you believe in, what we should have, how our country should operate. But it's a bus stop that's taking you in the right direction. So when you're looking at the candidates, which candidate is going to get you to the destination that you want to go? That's which candidate is going to move America forward to where you think America should go. So instead of looking at it as like an end all be all as a marriage, that this is how it's going to be. This is where my vote is going to lie, and I'm stuck with this vote. Yeah, once the election is over with, you can't vote for another president for another 4 years. But think of where you want the country to go, where your values are, and see which candidate aligns most with that, and know that candidate, though it may be slower than what you want, that candidate is going in the direction that you want the country to go.
The two biggest things that I've heard of why people don't vote, like you already hit that, A, their vote doesn't matter. And the other one that I've heard is that they don't want government or whoever to have their personal information. And that one's kind of funny because if the government wanted to, they would find you anyway.
I mean, go ahead.
So those are the two I hear.
So let me say this. If you order anything off of Amazon, if you have a PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, you get online and play games with your friends. If you applied for FAFSA or anything, like the government already has your information, right? I understand about the privacy rights and all that. Trust me, that's a big debate on Capitol Hill right now. If the government wanted to have your information, they probably already have it. And if they really wanted to track you and follow you and find you, they can do it.
It makes sense because I know me personally, I've been getting text messages galore from I'm working in America. This and that, and this and that. Are you gonna? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go on Tuesday. I mean, I've always voted, so I texted me, but that's where I'm just like, neither here nor there. And I want to hit a little bit on the presidential candidates, not just Trump and Biden, but just from what I'm seeing from both of them. We have, I think Trump is 74 and Biden 78. Yeah. Correct if I'm wrong on that. But how are we? I feel like we're getting older instead of younger. You still got people like Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell who are running the show there for as long as I could remember. And I feel like for the next step for the country to take forward, not just a Republican Democratic president, not even that, just people of our generation or above actually stepping up and doing things and taking those leadership roles.
So that's definitely something that I hear about all the time, and especially in conversations that I have with other politicos who are our age, people who are frustrated voters, people who are just frustrated with the American government. They're saying it's not really reflective of America. To an extent, I can understand why they feel that way, right? Especially when you start to pull the demographics of the country and where we're expected to go and how, more people of color are expected to grow in population. When you think about the number of Black women voters who vote in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, I know now they're having conversations about, how do we, essentially change and broaden our message to attract younger people of color, simply because of the trajectory of where the country's supposed to go. We're going to have more people of color in the country, and they don't want to stay as that party that's branded as an old white people, white man party, or white woman party. And for the Democrats, it's saying, hey, there's this very diverse group of people who vote for you, but leadership doesn't look like that. So I completely understand the frustration there, and I want to believe in that either way that this election may swing, that because of the understanding of how or the direction our country is going towards in regards to minority participation in elections, minority participation in party affiliation, and essentially the number of younger people who are much more in tune with the political day-to-day life, simply because of social media and all these other outlets, there has to be something to keep this group engaged. And I think that's where we come in as the millennial, younger, populace of America. Hey, again, the presidential election is not the end-all be-all; it's just the beginning. How do we come together? As cliche as it sounds, I've seen it work. The two things that really, really, most of the time move the hearts and minds of some politicians is data and which is numbers, of course. So if you have a bunch of people, you come together, you present the data. Is data in stories. So if we come together and share our collective stories and present it with data and say, hey, this is why we need more younger people in leadership, right? This is why we need to meet with our representatives and say, hey, it's time for a change. So I think that onus is on us to recognize that it's not just casting our ballot and expecting them to do what we want them to do. We got to, continue to do our part in the American democracy. And that means calling your state rep, your state senator, your federal rep, federal senator. That means going to meet with your staff. I mean, just because you can't meet with the representative or senator themselves, meet with their staff, right? Call their office, write letters.
Right. I agree. So I want to go into something else. That's why I'm going to ask this question. I'm pretty sure you hit on this earlier. Were you in any like house committees? Is there like committees you have to be a
Sure. So
part
when I
of?
was working at the State House, I helped cover the Judiciary Committee. Then when I staffed on Capitol Hill, the Agriculture Committee, which has a bunch of subcommittees under it, Veterans Affairs Committee, Ways and Means, which handles taxes and Social Security and all that type of stuff. So, and that is really, I encourage people as much as you can to try to inch your way into those committee hearings. Every committee has their hearings on their website. So if you were interested in the Education and Labor Committee, just Google the committee, go to their website. You can find their YouTube page, and listen to the committee, learn the language, the lingo, because that's where you see where amendments are made into the bill, things are taken in, taken out. Great debate happens in those committees. Sometimes the heads of specific departments like USDA or HUD, they come and testify in front of the committee. So that's really where a lot of the work gets done at. So yeah, I've had some experience of covering some committees, and it's really good work.
Now, the reason I ask that is because I really want to get into bipartisanism. And when on those committees, I'm assuming it was Republicans and Democrats. And so because you're there, and I personally, I feel like more things get done when we're on a more bipartisan, two sides are really working together, and that's when the country really shines. So why have we gotten so, well, just from watching on TV, I'm not there, you're there, but when we see it on TV and the commercials, it's like one side really hates this side and there's no getting along. Is that how it really is over there, or is that just what they're showing the public to garner their fan base?
Man, so yes and no. I say yes. I say yes because there are just flat out general disagreements on certain issues, right? One side is firm on this stance, the other side is firm on that stance. And then I say no because there is a lot of bipartisan effort and outreach that goes on Capitol Hill. For example, I know that Congresswoman Fudge, who represents Cleveland, she does a great job of doing bipartisan work. She's a member on the Agriculture Committee. And, a lot of questions that are often asked to her is like, hey, why are you on the Ag Committee? You represent Cleveland, Ohio, right? She'll let you know that she'll go into this spiel and talks about Ohio and Ohioans and the farms and all that type of stuff. But what a lot of people don't also know is that under that committee what falls under that committee is SNAP, the food stamp program, is the school lunch program and after school feeding program. So those particular things all fall under that committee. And so when it comes time to reauthorize big comprehensive legislation like the Farm Bill, she's having conversations with her Republican colleagues, right, to talk about how can we work together to ensure that this bill is as good as we can make it. There's always can be better, but she's someone who I know personally has done a great job of reaching out and doing some bipartisan effort, and it's across the board. She and other Republican colleagues say, hey, we may disagree on some things, but at the end of the day, we're still friends. So it's a yes and no thing. Again, there's certain issues where both sides are just hard on an issue, saying this is right and that's wrong. But then again, there are times where you recognize, hey, we need to get something done. And how can we do this? If you garner support from your side, I can garner support from my side, and let's get this done. And one of the bills that I referenced was the Farm Bill, and that's a good example of how Congress comes together and supposed to work together.
So with the two-party, do you feel like it's hurting America though? Because we're talking about there are smart, very smart Democrats, and there's very actually smart Republicans, and they might not be able to show their intelligence because I don't know they're at the bottom of their respective polls, or whatever. Would it just be easier if we just, out of everyone, we just pick the two best people and they go at it to be president or whatever, instead of just picking one Republican, one Democrat? Was that just easier? Just have the two overall?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, yeah, I think it could work, right? You know, having the two best people kind of go at it. But unfortunately, I don't know if it ever happened. Again, simply because of again, you have, you know, people from different, you know, contexts and parts of America, the country, who have different beliefs and understandings and line, and there's just some issues that they are just firm and standing upon, and some issues that, you know, they're not willing to budge. So as far as a two-party system, again, I hear a lot of complaints and frustrations about that. I think if we want to, I don't want to say, I guess, better engage and restore the hope in our American democracy, the electorate has to be energized, right? The electorate has to want to participate. There's been a lot of people who just say that it's not beneficial for me because of X, Y, and Z. So if we're going to continue, which I'm sure we are, but to continue the two-party system,
right?
I think the parties are going to have to figure out how they're going to have to best manage to engage and pique the interest of this new wave of voters, right? A lot of people our age are not, you know, party loyalists like how some of our parents or parents were. A lot of people our age are not identifying with the Republican or Democratic Party. They're identifying with the issues, and they're seeing where the issue falls for that party. So there's going to have to be some engagement, some type of reform from the parties as we continue to age and the younger generations behind us. I mean, if we're as radical as some people say, like the millennial generation, this next generation, the generation after that, that's going to come after us, I can only imagine, you know, how they're going to be involved in this political space. So there's definitely going to be a lot of, I guess, I don't want to say rebranding, but going back to the drawing board for both parties to try to figure out how to engage people who are not party loyalists anymore.
Right, because even with this current election, depending on the winner, if Trump wins, it'd be his second term, then he can't run again, and he would be higher 70s. And if Biden won, I doubt he would do a second term because he'd be 82. So even thinking 4 years down the line, how early do parties start thinking about who are we going to start throwing at the next election? Because this is either A, this guy's second term, so he can't do it anymore, or B, this guy's going to be too old. How early do you
so this is probably one of my favorite, I guess, subjects or areas to explore, like in the political world, is, you know, looking at the up and comer, if you will, politicians, stars, the next rising person in the party, whatever. So as far as a party standpoint, I don't know how that works. I've had conversations with people from either the Ohio Democratic Party or, you know, the DNC, RNC, that type of stuff, the local county party. And I will say that how that system works is very different from area to area, from county to county, state to state. And how the DNC or RNC operates, you know, I just don't have insight on that, because again, it's very different depending upon the area and context. Because what, for example, I don't know, let's say the average Democratic voter in Columbus, Ohio cares about is a lot different than what the average Democratic voter in Montana cares about. So it is very different on how they pick and choose which candidates they're going to try to promote and get out there. But something that I can tell you and you know, the listeners, is that just begin to pay attention to at your local level, and at your state level, at your federal level, at the reoccurring names that you see, like in newspapers or in articles or, you know, Twitter, who's out here being vocal, being visible, who is out here introducing, you know, policy, meaningful policy that's actually going to make a change, or, you know, addressing the issues of the day. And then as you continue to watch them, watch how their trajectory continues to go up, and you can then kind of form an idea of saying, you know, okay, I can see her, you know, trying to position herself to run for mayor. I can see him, trying to position themselves to run for city council. And that's something that also plays out on the national landscape as well. For a long time, people were watching Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren and Rubio and Cruz, right, because of the way that they positioned themselves prior to the actual, election and time for them to announce happened. So that's one of my favorite things to do in this world is to watch how things unfold and to see where they are trying to ascend to as far as higher office. But as far as the parties, man, I don't know.
Another thing I just want to ask is these past, it'll be 8 years now, I've seen a real uptick in celebrities, big names, getting involved in politics, like endorsing whatever candidate they want. And now you even have Kanye West trying to do his own presidential mess, whatever he's trying to do. I don't know if you guys poll this type of stuff. Do celebrities actually?
So I'm sure there's some data out there. I don't have it in front of me, and I don't want to misinform anybody. But I'm more than certain that there's some data out there of how celebrities sway voters. Otherwise, you wouldn't see candidates try to these events with celebrities. I remember during 2016 there was this big push, or this not necessarily a push. There was a segment I think either CNN did or CNN wrote about. I don't remember which source it was, but they were essentially talking about how the outreach, specifically to the Black community, was being more focused on by the Hillary campaign and the Trump campaign. And you saw Hillary, I think she had an event with like Pusha T and I think a concert in New York, and she had a few rappers and artists, R&B artists come out. And with Trump, he had did some things with oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. There's a Black pastor in Cleveland who used to be on TV a lot. He's not on TV anymore. But he had that celebrity stature in that area, right, in across the country. So I'm sure there's some data out there, but I'm willing to say, very off of anecdotal evidence, that yes, it does have some sway and influence because of historically how we have admired and viewed celebrities, especially athletes. We see a lot of athletes get involved now in this with the protest and
yes.
LeBron James starting his voter registration program. So, it definitely has an impact as far as the percentage of how it helps. I'm not sure, but we're starting to see a complete shift of involvement from our celebrities and athletes in the political world.
And then just one last thing, you talked about getting involved and all that. Let's say Joe Schmo on the street wants to get involved into politics. What's the smallest level you can start at to get your foot in the door if you're already past college, you're in the working field?
Sure. Again, so if I give it two approaches. So if you are the voter who is very adamant about not identifying with the party, right? To get involved, you want to advocate for your issues. Start off with the issue, with the issue. What do you care about, right? What is the thing that keeps you up at night that that needs to change? Because if it doesn't change, it's going to affect not only you, not only your children's children, but people, generations coming up. Start there, and then begin to look at your local government. That'd be, your county, township, whatever that be, your city council, mayor, state house. Start there and see what has already been done as far as bills that are introduced or being considered. And if there isn't anything, that's a great time for you to call that office. Do not feel like you cannot call your elected officials. Your elected officials. Do not be discouraged that when you want to meet and you cannot meet with them personally, meet with their staff. Staff is there to be an extension of the representative, the council member, the mayor, whoever it may be. But voice your concern, relay your opinion, meet with these people. And then, as you get more comfortable in that space, that's when you can suggest to say, hey, we need to What about some policy on this? What about this? What about that? And then it's their job for them to go back and tell you, say, okay, well, if this is what you want to do, let's look into going this direction, or can you get some more research for me, and so forth. So start with an issue and then work your way up into seeing what's been done in that area. But if you are, engaged in a party, you're going to vote Democrat or Republican or independent, go ahead and get involved at your local county parties. If there's a county party group, young Dems, young Republicans, whatever it may be, start there, because you're going to, one, expand your network of people who know who to talk to, where to go. A good percentage of the time, a lot of the elected officials that you read about and hear about on television are going to go through that organization, are going to go to that organization for something at some point, or do something with them, or ask for it. It's just going to happen. This is what they do. So start with the local parties if you're going that route. That's a great way to get involved. That's one of the ways that I kind of got involved after I started at the State House. I'm like, how can I do this, at a much deeper level? And that introduced me to a wide array, of network that has been very beneficial for me.
Man, is there anything else you want to drop some gems? Any more now you want to drop on the people?
So really, first and foremost, I just want to, thank you for thinking of me. I appreciate, all that you guys do on this podcast to educate your viewers and our people. As far as voting, go cast your vote if you haven't cast it already. Try to check on 3 other people, whether, that's your mom, your dad, cousins, aunts, friends, your roommate from college, just to see if they voted. Because this election does have consequences. The president, when he appoints his cabinet, they're going to be heads of departments that has an effect on your life and the lives of those who you love. There will be laws created, laws signed that will have an effect on your life or the lives of those who you love. Please know that just electing the president is not the end all be all to our democratic system. Vote down the ticket. There's state house races that are going on, school board races that are going on, judicial races that are going on. And with Google nowadays, you can find any and everything out about a candidate. So do your research, call somebody, right? Call somebody if you don't know. If you don't know anything about the candidate, your local person who's running for state house, visit their website. If they don't got the website, call an office. If they don't got an office number and they're, just running, figure a way out to get in contact with them. But if you get in contact with them, if there's no way that you can contact this candidate, then that's a sign right there that person shouldn't be in office. So attention to those little nuances as you engage in the political process. Exercise your right. It's going to be a very, very interesting election, and I just hope that you cast your vote and help someone else cast theirs.
You heard the man. That is some great final words. Just want to once again, Cam, thank you for taking the time out of your hectic schedule to come talk to us about all this stuff. We would definitely love to have you back in the future to talk about whatever the result of the election or whatever the first 100 days of the president, what that even means. Hopefully after this election, I don't know if it's true or not, you guys can take some
right before heat up again in January. Yeah.
Before inauguration
that would be nice.
Day, you could get a good application, but we would definitely love to have you back on just to talk about.
Hey man, I would love to come back. Thanks again for having me on.
Oh, no problem. And thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast once again. Thank you, Cam, for hopping on. Everyone take care. You heard him. Go vote. Election is this Tuesday. If you haven't already done your early ballots, go find your local polling place and get it done. They typically open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. I'm pretty sure that's I know mine is open that time. So basing off of that, and take care and be safe. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.